Growing up as a Nazarene pastor's kid, attending all the camp meetings, revivals, and district assemblies that I could, I really became familiar with Christian holiness at a pretty early age and the idea of entire sanctification and Christian perfection. However, my understanding back then was more of a total surrender only, and it was a total surrender of all the things that I wanted, all those things that were good, all those things that I wanted to do as a teenager. It was really kind of negative in its connotation, and it was also more of a make sure you do this, this, and this, and don't do this, this, and this. And then you're sanctified. You're good to go. You'll get to heaven. You'll live the way that God wants you to live. And there wasn't much focus, at least in what I heard, at least in what I understood, on the love of God and His grace filling us. It was more of, this is how it works. This is your total surrender. You have to come to a point where you die, and you die completely. And those words kind of really stuck with me. And it actually caused me to run away from ministry because I didn't feel like I could live up to Christian perfection and my understanding there, let alone be a minister in the Nazarene church. So I ran away because I had this idea of Christian perfection and holiness as being something of a perfectionism kind of thing. But it wasn't until I learned at college and read more of Wesley and Wynkoop and others that I really started to see Christian perfection as more of a meeting how I've been created, what God created me to do, and understand Christian holiness as a perfected love of sorts. And while the total surrender isn't incorrect, coming at it at a love perspective, a love for God first and foremost, loving Him with all of our heart, mind, and strength, and all that we are, and understanding that if we seek to do that with all that we are, that God will fill us with His love in such a way that it will be very difficult for us to sin. That we will find ourselves so in love with God that it just flows out to love for others, those made in His image, those that He's created. And while we can still sin, and we may not be sinless per se, in that sense of perfect, when we do, the love for God and love for others automatically almost finds that area where we need to grow and helps us to grow and say, you didn't love them there. You need to grow in that area. Let me help you. Let me show you how to love better in this area. And this idea of Christian perfection and holiness in this way really helped me to see how we are set aside to love others. We've been created. We have been made into God's people to love others, to love Him and to love others, so that they can come to know Him and be filled the same way. One of the best word pictures that I've experienced to kind of help me understand that transition of thinking of holiness is marriage and a toilet paper roll. One of my Christian ministry professors, my children's ministry professor at Olivet, shared this kind of word picture of there's two different ways where you can put a toilet paper roll on a toilet paper holder. And you usually don't know that there's another way until you get married. And your wife or your spouse wants it the other way. Well, he said, usually at first, you love the person, but you don't understand why exactly they want it the way that they want it. But that love for them will usually or should make you desire to do it the way that they want you to do it. To make you, out of love, accommodate. Out of love, do what they want to do. And at first it may be hard to do it. You may automatically try to do it the way that you've known how to do it. But more and more as you seek to love your spouse and doing this toilet paper roll hanging thing, you become more and more natural at doing it. It doesn't become a guideline or a checklist. It's a natural thing out of love that you're doing. And so while it may start as a kind of a checklist of, I have to do this to show love to my spouse, by the end, you're just doing it without thinking because you love your spouse. And so Christian perfection in that mindset of loving God in loving others and that growth that at first it may seem like, oh, I have to love that person. I'm going to really have to try hard. That as you continue to grow, it becomes easier and easier to love those that are even the most difficult to love. And so there's a lot more I could talk about Christian perfection. I've already went over 5 minutes. But that's kind of my understanding is this perfected love that God helps us to grow continually in. And so I hope this helped in some way. And if you have any questions about the word picture I use, I don't know if I communicated that the best or anything that I said, feel free to ask them. Because I really feel like there's a huge difference that can be made in understanding Christian holiness in a way that is more fuller and full of love compared to what I grew up with. Thank you very much.